Well, hello everybody, welcome back to my channel, Book Time with Elvis with me, Mark, and we've got quite the lineup for you today for our second Dr. November live. We're joined by Greg from Another Bibliophile Reads, Mike from Riff Raff's Reading Renaissance, Alan from Alan's Reads, and Emily from M Reads, a continuing education. Is it the whole title?
It is, but you don't have to say that
part. So yes, it's our second live for the for Dr. November. We plan to discuss what everyone's been reading, but also, of course, to get a bit of discussion in about the group read, which was The Quiet American by Graham Greene. There will probably be spoilers, I guess. You know, it's not exactly a new release, so I don't think it matters. Although if you are reading it for the first time and you don't want to have anything spoiled, then you know, turn over. So well, we'll just go through quickly because I don't know if you know everybody who's in this live, so we'll just get everybody just kind of introduce themselves and their channels very briefly, and then we'll push on. So Greg, probably the audience know you, I imagine, because you've been on my channel quite a lot, but you know, go ahead and introduce yourself and your channel quickly. So
okay, I'm Greg. My channel is Another Bibliophile Reads. I'm a very eclectic reader, so you never know what I'm going to focus on. It could be classic literature, it could be horror, science fiction, nonfiction, whatever floats my boat. So it's a bit limiting because I don't get the audiences they're really focused on one topic. So I have, you know, the people just who like different topics.
Very eclectic then. Super. All right, Mike.
Well, my channel is Riff Raff's Reading Renaissance, and it's really about late in life catching up and reading all the great books I haven't got around to yet. But I do also read a lot of new stuff that comes across my plate, and anything I hear the other booktubers telling me I ought to read. So a lot of fun.
Super. And Alan.
Yep. Hi, I'm Alan from Alan's Reads. I think a bit like Greg, I read quite widely, but I would say my kind of core is around crime, mystery, thriller, spy fiction, horror, that sort of thing. But yeah, I've been on BookTube for about a year, and I think that has widened my appreciation of what's out there to read.
Super. And last but not least, Emily.
Hey, I'm Emily from M Reads, and I have a relatively new BookTube channel that's been out there for about 4 or 5 months, kind of like Mike, and I mainly read kind of backlist titles, classics, things that I haven't gotten around to yet, with maybe like a little bit of fantasy and science fiction sprinkled in there. So yeah, I don't have like a super detailed niche either. So
wonderful. Well, all the channels are listed, of course, in the description, so please head over, check them out, subscribe if you haven't come across them before. So I'm sure everybody would appreciate that. So let's start with Emily this time. I'm curious about your Dr. November reading so far. Have you managed to read much or not? And let us know.
I have not managed to read much, to be honest, just because of various personal life factors. But I have started The Spy Who Came In From the Cold. So I have started that. I'm not quite halfway through yet, but I am really, really enjoying it. That's been great. So I'm hopeful that I'll finish that in the next couple days as things kind of lighten up with work a little bit. And then while I did read The Quiet American earlier this year, I've been kind of skimming back through this to kind of get reacquainted with it again.
Super. And have you, is it your first encounter with John le Carré, or have you read him before?
It is, yes. Which is very much why I picked that book. I was like, I feel like I can't let Dr. November go without doing a John le Carré. And I feel like if I'm going to do that one, then I have to do The Spy Who Came In From the Cold.
Yeah, good choice. Good choice.
It is excellent book.
Really,
it's been wonderful so far.
Super. Alan.
Yeah, I've been reading quite a lot. I think I'm sort of 4 or 5 books in. I read Goldfinger this week, as I thought I ought to get a Bond book in, just because, you know, it's a bit like reading Le Carré. If you don't get Fleming in, then it's not really spy fiction, is it? But the book that's captivated me most this week has been a book called War in the Shadows, which is about it's about a French resistance operative called Jean Moulin, and it's actually the author's second book about him, because he wrote the first book, and it was sort of how Jean Moulin was betrayed, and ultimately, died as a result of being captured by the Gestapo and interrogated. And when that book was published, someone wrote him an anonymous letter and said, "Really love your book, but think you've got the conclusion wrong." So he went back and looked at it again and dug into the records that were still in existence. As just it showed up the conflict between what was SIS, so MI6, and SOE, kind of basically not cooperating, and almost in competition with one another in France during the Second World War. So yeah, it was fascinating.
So basically it means that you wouldn't actually have to read the first one.
You don't have to read the first one. I think the first one tells a bit more of the story, because Jean Moulin was a prefect, so he was like a fairly senior local government official in France, and when the Germans invaded, they wanted him to do all sorts of things, to implicate people, and he just refused. So they basically kind of beat him up, tortured him, and he just became a resistance, a leader of a resistance cell. And ultimately, as I say, he was betrayed. And the first book is more about that, and the second book is a bit more of a memoir from the author in terms of how he got to find out about all of it and so on. So yeah, you can read them separately. You don't need to read
what are the titles again?
The second one is War in the Shadows, and I can't off the top of my head. I will have to look it up, but the author is Patrick Marnham. So
I'll look it up. I mean, while you're talking.
Yeah, no.
Alan, I mean, you said he was betrayed, and I don't know if this kind of gives things away, but was he betrayed by somebody under torture as well, or was he betrayed by someone like for financial gain? Or
well, this is part of the mystery of the second book, in that the person who wrote to Marnham saying that you got there was a couple who were basically tried and convicted for betraying him, but that is patently not true, and it was possibly this conflict between it might have been the kind of competing communist resistance cell, or it might have been the conflict between SIS and SOE.
Terrible. I mean, I cannot imagine the bravery it took for these people, especially like the SOE people who parachuted in, and even the ones who were not like properly French. I mean, imagine that, having such confidence in your language abilities to parachute into occupied France and try and get away with, doing stuff undercover. It blows my mind, to be honest.
I mean, and you think about it, a lot of the particularly the radio operators and the messengers were women.
Yeah,
because if you were a young man, in France at that time, you would have been lightly stopped by the Germans as well. Why aren't you, why are you wandering around? Why aren't you fighting? Why aren't you working, in a factory for us? So it's, it's, whereas, if you were a young female, you were less suspicious. There was a reason for you to be, out on the streets during the day.
But it's amazing, like the little things that would give people away. Because I'm reading that book that Farah recommended from last year, the Woman of No Importance, about Virginia Hall, and I mean, it was incredible. She was one of the first SOE people in. She had no idea about anything. There was no network in place. She was literally sent there and, like, you know, just do stuff. Yeah, make contacts, do what you can. But little things like, for example, the Germans passed a rule outlawing, I think, something like women from buying cigarettes.
Yeah.
You know, or from smoking in public, all this kind of stuff. So little things like that could give people away if they didn't, you know, if they weren't on top of what the latest regulations were. I mean, it's just incredible. But she's an amazing woman. I mean, the fact, you know, she had only one leg as well doing all this stuff. It's just unbelievable. Super. Well, that sounds really great, Alan. Have you anything else you want to add or about other reading?
No.
Super. I'm going to just pop to the comments before we go to Mike. So we have Vinterland here. Hello, everyone. Hello. Napalo is here. Good afternoon. I'm reading The Honorable Schoolboy. And Helen is here as well. Bonjour all. I'm in the slump of my life, but all the books are patiently waiting for me. Well, I'm sure we've all been there at times. So, Mike, over to you. How's your week been?
It's it's been quite busy work-wise, so the reading hasn't happened as much as I'd like. But my main reading has been, I think I mentioned last time, Frederick Forsyth's autobiography called The Outsider, which I must admit is as exciting as any of his novels. I read all his sort of big novels when I was much younger, and I haven't read him for ages. And when I saw this, I thought, I want to see what it's all about. Funnily, you were talking just now, Mark, about things that give the spies away. And something I did not know about Frederick Forsyth was when he was young, as a child, his father would send him every school holiday to a different country to stay with people. And therefore, by the time he was a young guy, sort of looking to be either a journalist or a pilot in the Royal Air Force, he had 5 languages under his belt.
Wow.
That made him incredibly sort of valuable. So, I mean, I'm not quite halfway, but it's confirming what I'd suspected was the wide range of adventure novels that he wrote. A lot of it has been drawn from similar experience. He talks, for example, about being a journalist stationed in Paris during Charles de Gaulle's era and having watched I think it was 4 assassination attempts on de Gaulle, all of which failed. And from that, he worked out how they should have done it, which became the Day of the Jackal. You know, he said that the trouble was that the French Secret Service knew all the resistance movement people, and they tracked them very easily, so none of them could get within the security conduit. And Forsyth's thought was they need to hire an anonymous assassin. You know, they need to go and hire a professional assassin that nobody knows. And of course, that's what the premise of Day of the Jackal became much later. So that's the one. I'm still plodding along through this little nonfiction I like for a living, which is just more fun than anything else. You know, there's bits on Graham Greene in here and Le Carre and Fleming and all those sort of people. I did finish The Spy Who Came In From the Cold. I really enjoyed that as well. And I went to my local charity shop this morning and I picked up a whole lot of McIntyre. I found basically all the McIntyres that I didn't have. So I've got The Spy Among Friends, which is the Philby one. I've got Agent Zigzag. And this, I think I may have mentioned this. I can't remember which show I mentioned this on, but this is Operation Mincemeat. And what's intriguing to me about Operation Mincemeat, which is the as you probably know, is the scheme to send a dead body containing false documents and fool the Germans into thinking it was a real setup. But I have discovered this is the book in 1953, which I've had in my home library for ages, written by the guy who was involved in that operation. And McIntyre, this guy died, and McIntyre, when researching the book, got hold of this guy's son, and in the attic of their house, McIntyre found a whole lot of documents which took us further than what had been published in this book, and therefore went into the sort of background research for Operation Mincemeat. So it was a strange sort of deja vu feeling of books all linking up together. But it's
I
been
like
a great.
the idea of these secret documents in somebody's attic, though. Do you think
Well,
in like 30
it is-
years, someone's going to go with a certain baron, somebody or other whose name I won't mention, and they'll go into his attic, and there'll be all these files relating to a certain Jewish financier who maybe died?
More than likely.
Probably.
Oh, and diamonds are forever left
Oh.
off the shelf into my basket at the charity shop as well. Someone
Super.
earlier said you can't have a document in it, so there it is. I think that's pretty much does it.
Wonderful. All right, Greg, over to you.
Well, I did not get a lot of Dr. November read this week.
Mm-hmm.
I had picked up a horror novel. I'd read some previous books by the author, and I was expecting a 200-page book. Something you can read in 2 days. And it was nearly 600 pages long because I bought it on Kindle. And it's one of those books that the author wasn't even trying. He's just typing it out like it's like typing exercise, and it's like, ugh. So I also listened to an audiobook of Hard Times by Charles Dickens.
Oh, okay.
It was a reread.
Yeah.
You see, I have a project that I set for myself this year is to read a book from every decade from 1850 to current. And that was my last book in the project for the year.
Wow.
So.
And why? I mean, why 1850? Why not 1800?
Because 1850 is a nice cutoff,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
And the fact that I just finished in November, if I had gone back to 1800, I could have squeezed 5 more, and not that difficult, but maybe for 2026, I'll do the whole 1800s.
Oh, there you go.
I'll just, but that's the reason, because, I was looking for books in 1800, so that's why I picked it.
You've got me thinking, though, if there are any examples of kind of trashy horror espionage, or some kind of what's the thing that is it Roy or someone does
Roy
about what's the detective stuff they do? Occult detective, whether they have occult spies, and this kind of stuff.
It doesn't matter. I mean, so yeah, that's a good idea. I might do that for 2026. Is you do all 3? I
mean, a ghost spy would actually be very useful, probably.
I did do the same project for Horror Mayhem, read a short story from every decade.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sort of inspired me. So tonight, I'm also reading a couple other books. Like I'm reading Cider House Rules by John Irving for a project. So I got to finish that. I wound up reading this book called Alchemize by Sin Lin Yu.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of a fantasy book. There was a booktuber. Oh, she just came out and spewed hatred about this book.
Willow.
I mean, she was practically frothing at the mouth how much she hated this book.
Yeah.
It's sort of a fantasy, sort of a romance. It's not my general subject, but she hated it so much, I had to check it out. And now I'm getting to the point where I think that the author, I understand why she hates it, but I've read so much worse that it's nothing. So that sort of distracts from my Dr. November reading. But tonight, hopefully, I am going to be starting Diamonds Are Forever.
Okay.
Because like Mike says, you should read a Fleming or a Le Carré every November. And this is the first month or doctor that I won't be reading Le Carré book.
I just have this kind of trigger in my brain every time I hear Diamonds Are Forever or Goldfinger. I just have Shirley Bassey just going off in my head, going Diamonds Are Forever. So, yeah.
You're not alone.
Sorry,
you're not alone in that.
No, it's just this is there, isn't it? Super. So Helen comes back and says, "What, The Day of the Jackal's on my list." Alan read that one with MJ, and I really like the sound of it.
Fantastic! It's a great book.
A Ghost Spy. Someone should write that. Hello, everyone. I'm reading The Berlin Game and Slow Horses. Well, Berlin Game is great, and actually brings you've actually done a nice kind of segue into my own book that I finished actually about 3 hours ago, which is Mexico Set, which is the second of the trilogy in the first trilogy of the trilogy of trilogies. And yeah, wonderful, fantastic. very, very enjoyable. I will make a video about that later. But so far, I just really enjoy his writing, and I really enjoy the dry humor very much. You know, and it's just something very different from the Carre or, of course, the likes of Fleming as well.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, go on, Greg.
I read Berlin Game 20 years ago. And I really enjoyed it. It's like you say, like a realistic spies and not the exaggerated spies.
Yeah, I mean it's funny because I don't want to say spoil anything for anyone, I suppose, but the those who've read it will know, of course, that there's some kind of traitor and who that traitor is and stuff, which if you were to talk about it would sound ridiculous. I think it would be like, oh yeah, really? Yeah, sure. But it just works really well. I don't know, he just manages to get away with it and write it well.
Mark, did you know who the traitor was before?
Well, I mean, he does, to be fair, he does kind of like, I think, make it easy to guess pretty early on. I think. Yeah. But that didn't ruin it for me at all.
No.
And the way, of course, he deals with it and stuff, it's great. But I think if I was reading it, like the synopsis of it, I'd probably be like, oh, I'm not going to give it a go. It sounds a bit silly to me, a bit far-fetched, but no. And then the way he's obviously crafted it into, you know, these 9 books. I don't know how much the 9 books go in with the same antagonists, you know, all the way through, but certainly, you know, sorry, 3 books.
I was going to say all of them.
Oh, all of them. Wow. Okay.
I mean, there are, you know, guest characters. And yeah, if you need to read all of them. Yeah,
no, I can't wait. I'm definitely, I'm starting London Match, you know, probably tonight. I also made a start with Ashenden. I've read a few of them before, which I read from this book, actually, because there are a few of them in here. But I wanted to have them all together. So, yeah. So far, just one I've read, but it was, it's enjoyable. And then, of course, The Woman of No Importance, which is on the Kindle. So no point in holding it up, really. But very much enjoying that, too. A couple more comments, and then we'll move on to The Quiet American. Where are we? I like the cover of Mexico Set. Is that a Penguin Modern, Mark? Yes, it is. Yeah, they've re-released, I think, all of his books apart from maybe the French cookery books in these Penguin Modern series. Last year, when you held this event, I read Ken Follett's Eye of the Needle. It was a good read. I think one of you, Greg or Mike, mentioned it. Yeah, mentioned it last week. Yeah.
I must admit, Mark, the Len Dayton's been a bit of a revelation to me, because going into Dr. No-vember, I knew Le Carre was good and I knew Green was good, but the extent to which you've enjoyed Dayton, not just his fiction but his non-fiction as well, it sort of hooked me a bit. I haven't read anything of it yet, but I think I'm going to have to. Yeah,
I was just actually thrilled when I found out he's still alive. You know, for some
amazing.
reason I thought he died a couple of years ago, but he's 96 and he's living somewhere in Europe. Doesn't say where, but it's a shame. I might track him down.
That's probably why he doesn't say.
Well, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. So, no, it's just very, very good, very entertaining, very tongue in cheek. But you know, he's just got a good way. As I say, whether it's fiction or non-fiction, he's got a good way about him. Libera Paradisa, there was a Seinfeld episode where George falls in love with a woman because she despised him. There is something in that. No interest in Irving, but I like Le Carre and prefer the films to Fleming. Okay, I remember the episode for sure. I do like Seinfeld. One of my sons is watching the Bond films in order. He thinks I should read one, but I'm not sure it's my cup of tea. Oh, they're pretty different, I would say. I think
yeah, some of them are very different.
Yeah,
I mean, the Spy Who Loved Me is nothing like the film. The film is nothing like the book.
My understanding was they basically just bought the rights to the titles and done their own scripts.
Yeah.
Because some of them are even like just short stories, aren't they? Is the Spy Who Loved Me a short story? Or?
No, Spy Who Loved Me is a complete story. For Your Eyes Only.
Octopussy is as well, I think.
Short stories, and Octopussy and the Living Daylights are short stories.
I've recently discovered that because I've just picked up this called Quantum of Solace, which is James Bond's short stories. And when I look at the names of the short stories, it's A View to a Kill, For Your Eyes Only, Quantum of Solace, Octopussy, The Living Daylights. It's all the names that I thought were the films. And I didn't realize those weren't books, but only short stories. So.
Yeah. No, a lot of the kind of later films, the titles are the short stories.
I suppose leveraging the franchise. Eh?
Yeah.
I remember I read Moonraker last year, and I had not seen that movie since, was it 70s or 80s when it came out, something like that.
Yeah.
And there was no plot from the movie in the book, nothing.
No.
Yeah.
No, they're good. The books. There's a I think Audible seem to be redoing them now, and I don't know whether that's because of all the problems that they have today. But the last year they had them all for free on the Plus catalog on Audible, and they were all read by well-known British actors and stuff, and they were great, absolutely great.
Now I know because Mark and I did this. Is that current Bond in the U.S. you cannot buy the original text anymore. It's all been boulderized.
Oh wow.
And the thing is, it's very inconsistent in how they do it. Because in Casino Royale, there's a scene wherever the main enemy's guy's name, I don't remember his name, LaChalf or something. The Chiffre. He's talking about red Indians.
All right. Yeah.
And that's in the new version. And I'm going like, okay, you're going to cut out one race when it's insulting, but not the other.
Yeah.
Isn't that? I mean, if you're going to do it, do it.
I
don't approve. If you're going to make the effort to redo it, do it all.
Right. Yeah. No, I don't like boulderization just because you have to understand this book was written in the 50s.
Yeah.
And not everyone, but racism was just rampant.
Some books just wouldn't make sense if you took stuff out. I mean, I haven't read, for example, To Kill a Mockingbird yet. It's one of my plans to definitely read it next year. But I imagine it's a book that probably features a few words that are unsavory. I'm guessing. I don't know. I might be wrong. But surely that wouldn't make sense if they weren't there. Like Huckleberry Finn wouldn't make sense really if you remove all those words. Because you're making it less. Because part of the shock factor for us now is the fact that people did use these words in such ways.
And now, Mark, this is something I have noticed: is that the novels that get the most boulderizations are James Bond,
Agatha Christie,
Roald Dahl,
and they're all because they're making movies out of these books. And I actually think that the movie theater, the movie production theaters, are the ones pushing.
That's such a great point.
Because someone's going to see the movie, then read the book, and we don't want that to translate back to the movie.
It's the tie-in to the book that they're looking for. I think that's the problem. Gosh. Well,
isn't there a racial slur in that book actually, or not?
Which in Quiet America?
Yeah, wasn't there one?
I kind of, but the problem is I don't get upset.
Yeah,
unless
I must. Greg, you're making me very pleased that I picked up this old copy of Diamonds Are Forever. I've just looked. This book's the same age as me, so I doubt there's much boulderization in it.
So we have a few more comments. My favorite spy novels are the books and comic strips of Modesty Blaze by Peter O'Donnell, masterful works. Same with From Russia with Love. Prefer the film easily. Well, I have to say, I do think of the Connery Bonds. I think From Russia with Love is actually my favorite of the. But my Bond was Timothy Dalton, and I know a lot of people put him down, and I suppose License to Kill wasn't fantastic, but I do think Living Daylights was good fun, and I watched it in the cinema, and I don't know, I like Timothy Dalton, so I'm gonna kind of stand up for him a little bit. But I imagine for those of you older than me, your Bond was probably Roger Moore, and
Yeah,
you liked him
see,
better,
Roger
so-
Moore was my Bond.
Mine.
I won't tell you who my Bond was.
Yeah.
Well, I've already
guessing
admitted to Roger
Brosnan,
Moore,
but it
except for
could be
Sean
Craig.
Connery, and I
was
don't think you're a
Brosnan.
Sean Connery.
Connery's my favorite, but the one I was first introduced to was Pierce Brosnan.
Mhm,
I think the reason I fell for Roger Moore is that was the first Bond that I saw in the cinema. You know,
Yeah,
as a kid.
that's
Yeah.
for me too.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was alive and watching Bond when Roger Moore was still doing them. You know, I'm not going to pretend I'm younger, but the first one I saw in the cinema, yes, was The Living Daylights. Yeah,
And I have to
like
say that I stopped after. I mean, what was the last Roger Moore Bond? Something I don't know, but I just got
Beautiful,
tired
yeah.
of them because all. I mean, I'm sorry if I insult people, but all the Bond movies are essentially the same.
yes.
And how many
They are.
times can you see one movie be remade with different characters and slightly different events? I just say no.
Yeah.
And so even though I'm reading a Bond novel every year now, I wonder, will I get to the final Bond novel, or I go, Ian Fleming is just rewriting his own book at this point. Maybe someone who's read all of them can tell me if
I
that's
think
true.
Randy's read them all, but annoyingly he's not here. So I imagine Steve's probably read them all. I don't know.
Oh, Steve's read them all 10 times.
He must have, yeah.
Yeah, probably when they first came out as well.
Yeah. Of course, all Steve does is like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah. Helen says, Mark, if you were offered the new Bond role, would you take it? Yeah, I probably would. I think it'd be interesting. You know, why not? In this day of equal opportunities, we could have a middle-aged, overweight, short-sighted James Bond. Would be kind of fun, maybe.
I thought you'd be a villain of some sort.
I bet. Yes, I could be a villain as well. I don't mind.
Villain.
I
Yes.
think with all the thumbnails you've been doing, Mark, you've been auditioning for the part already.
Yeah, could do. Yeah.
Uh,
Do you expect me to read? No, Mr. Bond. I expect you to. I didn't know they had done that with the Bond books. I have early editions, fortunately. And then On Her Majesty's Secret Service and The Man with the Golden Gun are my favorite Bond films. So, yeah, there's some good ones there. So, moving on from Bond, let's move to Alden Pyle and Thomas Fowler, shall we? And discuss a little bit about The Quiet American by Graham Greene.
I'm intrigued by all the different editions because I know Emily's got a edition.
Yeah, I envy Emily's edition, to be honest. Sorry, Mike.
I love this. I have a couple other Graham Greene novels that are in this same Penguin Deluxe, and they're nice.
Yeah, I managed to get a second-hand one of Travels with My Aunt in that edition.
No, mine was a charity shop. I just grabbed the first copy I found. So
well, firstly, before we do discuss it, who's read other Greene apart from The Quiet American before?
I have.
Right,
okay.
so
it's us newbies who haven't, hey, Emily?
There's several on my shelf, but I haven't gotten to them yet.
Same with me. I've got on a whole kick. I even bought, and Mark knows this, but I even bought Graham Greene's collected essays because Steve said to me, if you see it, grab it because it's very good. But Emily and I both said, yeah, indeed, there you go. Emily and I both said as soon as we finished this book that we wanted to read more Greene, but of course, you got this damn TBR saying, what about all the other stuff? So we're newbies.
Well, and really, before I read The Quiet American, I was more familiar with people talking about his like Catholic novels, like The End of the Affair and Brighton Rock and The Power and the Glory, than I was his espionage novels. So it was nice to pick this up.
well, actually, Emily, you've kind of given us maybe our first talking point, which we did touch on last week, and there does seem to be some debate about it. And is The Quiet American an espionage novel?
Sorry,
I don't mean you have to answer, Emily. I mean, anyone can answer. I don't want to put you on pressure, but
No.
you just mentioned it. So I just wonder what your opinion is.
If I just picked this book up off the shelf out of the blue, not having any idea what it was before I read it, I don't know that I would think about it that way, but I can see the elements there after people label it that. And knowing just a tiny bit about Green's own background, working with Philby and things like that, you can see the shades of it there. But I think if I came into the book with no background at all on it, I don't know that I would immediately be like, oh yeah, this is a spy novel.
Alan, you look like you had something to say when I
was going to sort of agree with Emily. I don't think it's primarily a spy novel. I think it's more, you know, a novel of you know, Indochina at that time, and the relationship between the, you know, the three, you know, Fong, the Fowler, and Pyle, and the spy element is kind of it's a plot device. You know,
Yeah,
so that it's not, you know, it's not specifically about that,
but it is an important one though, because of course you can't reach the conclusion without the espionage. So,
well, the premise is espionage in the real world is not James Bond. And even John le Carré, which is closer, it's not even John le Carré. It's probably a lot closer to what you see in the Quiet American, that this would be the life of a real espionage agent doing realistic espionage work. And so when we talk espionage fiction, we don't necessarily want the real story of espionage, because my next door neighbor worked for the CIA, and it's out. He's admitted he worked for the CIA.
Well, it's out now.
Blowing his cover.
Well, he confesses that he worked for the CIA. He mostly worked in equipment procurement, like buying cell phones for people who are going out into the field. But he says he was out in the field once and there were people shooting. So, you know. Yeah. But no, that's a real spy. I mean, he's a nice guy, but you would never think of him as an espionage agent, James Bond type.
I suppose that's the point, isn't it? It's just from my side, as far as is it an espionage book, I know Steve Donahue was sort of quite vociferous about it initially. I must admit, I always felt that it was, because I'm with Greg on this. I think that espionage to me is only about when what you see on the surface isn't actually what's going on, and there's subterfuge. It doesn't have to be, you know, major secret agents deep inside another organization. You know, I think the espionage to me is about maneuvering behind the scenes and pulling strings that you don't see. You know, like I said last time we chatted, I said that I was surprised there wasn't more George Smiley in The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, and Greg immediately corrected me and said, he's there, you just can't see him. You know? So I think
that's why he's so wonderful, isn't he? I mean, George Smiley is just this presence. He's completely the anti-Bond. I mean, he's you know, short, old, overweight, clammy-handed, just shuffles along. You know, suits are too big for him, kind of thing. And yeah, I mean, it's just it's perfect. But I mean, the whole going back to the Quiet American and obviously espionage, and of course the person that's focused on is Pyle, aka the Quiet American. And what do we think of him? Anyone can just jump in, or I can pick on you. I feel like I'm at school now. You there? Riffraff at the back. Riffraff of the upper sixth. You boy.
I must admit, I immediately got to Pyle where I think we're meant to get to, because I read the book and then I watched the movie before I had the chat with Emily, and I said to Emily that in fact Brendan Fraser, who plays him in the film, is an actor that I am always irritated by, and I don't really know why, and therefore there was something, and of course, remember, I started the book with the two movie characters on my front cover, so there was a sort of, and I'd seen the film years ago, you know, before I read the book, so there was a sort of association. I don't like the sort of how can I put it? I don't like characters that are sort of too good, too nice, try too hard, the sort of button down, characters. I find those quite irritating. And I mean, if I remember correctly, I think Emily made the point that we're supposed to dislike Pyle, and he certainly got under my skin quite quickly. And I suppose it was even more so in that I also adored Fowler. Fowler is right in the sweet spot of what I look for in literary characters. But let me not say too much. Back to you, sir.
No, I mean it's interesting. I don't know if anyone watches the channel Sterling Reads by Summer, and of course she absolutely hated Thomas Fowler. And then I was speaking to somebody else who started off hating Thomas Fowler, but when things kind of became a bit clearer and he was able to kind of clarify this position that he refuses to take, of course, throughout much of the novel, actually came to like him and appreciate him more too. And I think that's something that is interesting to look at is Fowler's motivation. And this is where some spoilers will come in now. So if you want to turn over, then please do, because his motivation in betraying Pyle, how much of it is due to him actually wanting to do the right thing, or how much of it is due to his own selfish want in getting Fong back? Would you say, Alan, or whoever? So.
I think it's more his self-interest than anything else. I think it's the doing the right thing is a means to an end. It's pure self-interest, but he's just like he can't do the right thing himself either. He can't get a divorce from his wife, or won't even ask for a divorce earlier in the book. And he just decides that the way to win back Fong is to do away with Pyle.
Easiest method, because the thing is, what does Fong really think? You never get into her head. Did she love?
I don't like
Pyle?
any of these characters.
I don't think she did.
You don't like any of these characters, Emily?
I mean, I can sympathize with them all in various things, but I don't think I'd be friends with any of them.
Yeah. No, I don't think Fong ever got to tell her her story, what she wanted. She was very much, she was at the dances or whatever they were, and there to find a husband. And
but
all directed by her sister.
Yeah.
And
but isn't that the point? I mean, isn't Fong just Vietnam?
Yes,
isn't Fong just Indochina? She's being pulled in different directions. She's being manipulated by her sister. She's being manipulated by Fowler, of course, the embodiment of the old colonial power. She's being manipulated by Pyle, the Americans piling in and trying to sort things out. I mean, isn't that what he's getting at?
I think that's exactly what he's getting at. I do.
She also seems to be
ahead,
content to let that happen.
Well, isn't Vietnam sort of?
Yeah, it might.
Didn't Vietnam just sort of? I mean, at what
pragmatism.
point do you, as a country, do you stop and say we don't want this, or I'll just live with this because it's the path of least resistance, even if it's not the best path.
Yeah.
Can I ask you guys who've read more Green than Emily and I, is Graham Greene good at writing women in other books? Because Emily and I touched on that issue, is that I agree with you, Mark, that I think it was intentional that Fong is underdeveloped and not fully realized, if you like. And I actually drew an analogy to some of the black female characters in South African novels where you get the same sort of, for the same sort of reasons of colonialism, etc. So I think it's intentional, but I don't know, and I'm very interested as to whether Green is good at writing women, or is he just bad at writing women, for example? Thoughts?
Well, for me, the only one that springs to mind is the aunt in Travels with My Aunt, and he does a good job with that, but it's a bit of a silly, kind of comedic trail. But I can't, I haven't read, when I think of the Heart of the Matter again, I only remember the policeman. Is it the Heart of the Matter in Africa? The African policeman? I always get that confused with.
I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't read it, but I think it is.
I just remember again that being very male orientated. And then, of course, the Third Man. Again, I don't remember any women specifically. I don't know. Actually, it's a good question because for me, the End of the Affair. When I started reading Green when I was like 16, 17. Because we did the Third Man at school, and I enjoyed it, and I thought I would read some of his other stuff. But at that age, I looked at like the End of the Affair and thought, sounds like romantic nonsense. I don't need to read that. I never did. So I don't know. Alan, Greg?
I read or reread Brighton Rock earlier.
Again, it's about men mostly, isn't it?
It's mostly about men. You have Pinky, you have his girl, and again, she's just the girl of interest who I don't want to go into huge spoilers, but who could implicate Pinky in a murder. And so he has to placate her. And that's really all Pinky saying, what do I do to keep this woman on my side?
Right.
And I didn't really think about it very much until you started mentioning, does Graham Greene do good women characters? And now going back to, I said, she's a plot device in the book. The psychology was all in Pinky and him trying to make sure that his crimes are not revealed. So that's a good point. I mean, I've read, let me jump to all the Graham Greene. Brighton Rock, Quiet American, Power and the Glory, Gun for Hire,
Human Factor.
The Enemy. I think that's all Graham Greene that I've read.
Ministry of Fear?
I haven't read that one.
Huh?
Is that a good one?
Yeah. Yeah. World War II.
Our Man in Havana.
Our Man in Havana, Honorary Consul, Istanbul Train.
I have, wait a second, I have Human Factor. Where is that?
I just picked up the Human Factor because it's set in South Africa.
Yeah, I'll just go to the comments while Greg's doing that because there are a few here.
I've also read
Graham Greene is fantastic. The End of the Affair was the first book I read by him. I'm surprised no one picked The Confidential Agent. I could have done, I guess, maybe next time.
I forgot about this one.
Oh, here we go.
The Comedian.
The Comedians.
This was really, actually, this might be my favorite Graham Greene. About Haiti.
Yeah.
Down in when Papa Doc.
There's a movie with Richard Burton about the comedians. I just know because I'm a Richard Burton fanboy.
And again, not really espionage, but there's people in. Now I have these two that I have not read: The Honorary Council and The Human Factor. No one's read either of these two.
No, as I say, Greg, I've just got The Human Factor because it's set in South Africa. That's why I want to read it.
Okay.
It's about a plot to keep South African gold out of the Soviets' hands. That sort of thing.
Okay.
Which supposedly is very good.
Well, I own it, and I'm on the Read What You Own challenge. I might put this to the top for 2026.
Yeah.
Mike, if you're interested, maybe we can do a buddy read in 2026.
That might be fun. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Can I come back, Mark? Sorry, I don't know if you want to do more comments, but
I will actually just go through very, very quickly. Hold that thought. Don't do what I do and just immediately forget what you're going to say. If you listen to shortwave radio, the Russian government still broadcasts spy numbers with Morse code. Well, okay, that's spooky. Question for all: do you think you'd be a good spy? And Libra Paradise does say, I think he writes women well. We'll come back to Helen's question later after Mike. So, Mike.
I just had a thought listening to the question you asked earlier about Fowler and his motivations. I wonder whether Graham Greene has intentionally left that slightly open, because if you go back and talk, we started by saying, I loved him. You referenced, was it Summer, who hated him? There were degrees of empathy for him. And I found myself wondering whether the author had intended to allow his readers that range. Do you know what I mean? That depending on your own personal view as you come into the book, you will either decide that he's more to the selfish side or more to the, let's say, moral side of those decisions. I don't know if that's a valid point, but it felt to me as if there was some fluidity there so that we could each find our own settling point. I don't know if that makes any sense.
I mean, if it was me, I'm a little bit opposite to Alan and Emily. I think he chooses to do the right thing, and it happens to also benefit him. Because for me, I just remember how shocked and upset and distraught he is. One, obviously, with the deaths and the bodies he sees in the canals, and he's really shook up by that dead child and everything. And I think for him, that's the final straw that says, because to be honest with you, if he wanted Pile out the way, just out the way in general, he could have probably done it in Vietnam at that time for like $50 from anyone, $10 by some gangster, straight away. So I don't think he was like, it just so happened to also benefit him as well, I think. Or it could work both ways, just as Alan and Emily say. But to me, I think he was really, really upset, especially by Pile's cold and almost, it's not even cold. It's just like he just doesn't even seem to see or notice
just
the carnage.
Naive.
Yeah, completely. So I don't know. I mean, he is a very complicated character, and Michael Caine does play him very, very well, I think.
Absolutely born to play him, I think.
Yeah. So no, it's an interesting book, definitely, and Graham Greene is somebody who's I think you don't see a huge amount of him on BookTube, and if you do, it probably is just things like The Quiet American or The End of the Affair, maybe what's the other one I'm thinking of? Power and the Glory, maybe like that. Yeah.
Yes. Tell me something again. I'm very curious by those of you who read more than I have of Greene. I mean, the story is a fantastic story. It's gripping and it's interesting, and the writing is always good, but in some moments it's spectacularly good. I was struck by, if you remember that scene in the cafe just before the big bomb goes off, the way that was written resonated with me in a way. And again, if I can give you a quick context in my South African context, in the 80s, we were going through a similar thing where, protest movements were setting off bombs in bars and people were getting killed. It was not a good time. But that feeling of total normality, and in an instant, something happens like a bomb, and suddenly the whole world changes. The way he wrote that moment, I don't know if I've got it. Let me see. Will you indulge me if I read you two sentences? Because it just, I must just find it. Yeah. He's been talking in the cafe about two women sitting there, comparing, I think, their compacts, their makeup, and, dull and boring and uninteresting. And he says, it was impossible to conceive either of them a prey to untidy passion. They did not belong to rumpled sheets and the sweat of sex. Did they take deodorants to bed with them? I found myself for a moment envying them their sterilized world, so different from this world that I inhabited, which suddenly, inexplicably, broke in pieces. That writing to me is one of the most stunning pieces of turnaround from dull, boring normality to suddenly the world has changed. I had to stop and read that a couple of times because, and again, one of the things I really do on my channel, in fact, I've even got a book. I stop and write into, this is my greatest hits book, if you know what I mean. That kind of writing just literally stops me in my tracks. And that was the moment when I thought, no, okay, now I'm a Graham Greene fan, because just with a simple turn of phrase like that, he completely captured that feeling of dull and boring normality, and suddenly, boom, the world changed. It was incredibly good writing, I thought. Anyway,
I agree. I absolutely agree.
No, he's definitely a master author, and sadly, I think he's sort of on his way out in the canon of readers. Yeah. I mean, you get a whole bunch of authors like that who were once really considered the top. Now I'm going to mention some like Philip Roth,
Yeah.
John Updike.
Yeah.
Now most of the John Updike and Philip Roth, I think they were both misogynists, and I think that deters a lot of new readers.
Yeah.
Especially, it's like I don't want to read about Philip Roth because he's a nasty man. Same apply to John Updike, and I don't think that applies to Graham Greene. But I did a video earlier this year about some authors who are very popular just fade over time. Who knows John O'Hara?
No, I just know his sister Scarlett.
He wrote Appointment in Samara. Anyone recognize that title?
No.
One of the great classics of early American literature. And he's basically just not read anymore.
Yeah.
A lot of it is because there's so many new books, and these new books just crowd out all the old ones.
I mean, maybe one saving grace for Greene, which I think doesn't affect the others that you mentioned, is there are films, quite a lot of films based on his work and some of them, of course, okay, I guess probably The Quiet American is maybe the most recent adaptation, at least I think, that I can think of a Graham Greene book. Maybe. But, that was still, what, 10 years ago? No, 15 years ago? 15, 20, yeah. Still recent enough that someone, it might be on Netflix, someone sees it, and it says based on book by Graham Greene. I think, oh, that sounds interesting. So, that might save him, whereas I can't think of too many films based on Philip Roth and John Updike, but I might be completely wrong.
There was a big one.
Yeah, The Plot Against America.
No, before that.
Because that became a TV series, I think.
I can't remember. It had Deborah Winger, I think and that's just how old the movie is. If it starred Deborah Winger, that's quite old.
The 80s, at least, right? So
80s, maybe 90s.
Yeah.
Not Officer and a Gentleman, was it?
Funny you should say that, Greg. I was hearing Steve Donahue was talking about this business of his theory is that the author only maintains fame as long as they're alive, and as soon as they die, in his words, the whole facade drops. And his prediction is that that's going to happen to Stephen King, which is very interesting. I'm not a massive fan of Stephen King, I have to say. I don't like horror. If you make me watch a horror film, it'll be The Shining, because that was a good film. But I haven't read the book. In fact, I don't think I've read anything by King. I probably need to read something. But I was intrigued because he's certainly big and famous. But Steve's prediction is that when King dies, so will his legacy.
Well, I don't necessarily disagree with his theory in principle. Steve Donahue has a bug up his posterior with Stephen King. He just absolutely refuses to accept him as a legitimate author.
Oh, I do think he does accept, I think, Salem's Lot as an all right book. I'm pretty sure I've heard him say that, but I might be wrong.
He has the same thing with Cormac McCarthy.
And James Joyce.
James Joyce has survived despite being dead 100 years.
Despite Steve.
So, but no, it's a legitimate point. And again, I mentioned like Philip Roth and John Updike. Yeah. At their peak, they were considered good contenders for the Nobel Prize in Literature. John O'Hara, which I mentioned, also was considered a top choice for Nobel Prize in Literature, also completely faded now. So, no, I'm not saying Stephen King's ever going to be considered Nobel Prize material, but I think he will fade.
I think the fact that he puts out so many books will hurt his legacy. I think it'll water it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like James Patterson.
No, James Patterson doesn't write his own books anymore. I think Stephen King does write his own books. But James Patterson, no.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's interesting because I've got a book called The Rivals to Sherlock Holmes, and it's edited by Hugh Green. And if you don't know Hugh Green, it's Graham Greene's brother. And Hugh Green used to be Director General of the BBC.
Mm.
So, you know, not that it's relevant, but I thought I'd mention it. We have a couple of interesting things here from Libra Paradiso. Green is good with motive and intent, and his characters tend to have an Achilles heel. And that's very true. Their conscience, which sometimes dooms them. His Catholicism helps him because in the faith, one must question every act to see whether it was committed with self-interest or for unselfish reasons. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, Green was a convert, wasn't he, to Catholicism?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
he converted when he married his wife,
Yeah.
but I think it was a convenience rather than a conviction. If I
Yeah.
could put it.
I was going to say, to the extent you consider him a true convert is debatable,
but I think he must have been after, because he's so troubled by it in his work,
Well,
in his life, you know? Like, maybe not at the time, but
I think he called himself a Catholic atheist.
Yes, definitely. He was not 100% Catholic. Let me tell you that. I mean, he was.
Was he a true believer, or like you said, he was a Catholic atheist?
That's what he called himself.
I can speak for the Catholics because I was one once. Once you're a Catholic, there's no undo button. You can't unbecome a Catholic.
I can speak for the Catholics because I was the Pope once. Or something.
No, but I think if I understand what happened is back then a Catholic marrying a non-Catholic was a bit of a problem and was referred to as a mixed marriage. Can you believe? And therefore, I think what Green would have done for convenience was convert. I don't get the impression that he was ever a true convert, because I think he if he wasn't atheist, he was at least agnostic.
I feel like I was going to say the opposite. I think he probably did believe, but really, really struggled with it in terms of he knew he wasn't living in the way in which his beliefs would require, and therefore that caused a lot of his angst.
There's such a theme throughout his books that you think he must be genuinely troubled by it, I would say, but you know,
that's what makes it interesting.
Yeah.
Would you really want to read a book by a character who had no doubt of their faith and just believed wholeheartedly? Not interesting.
Yeah,
I would not find it interesting.
Yeah, it comes back to my love of flawed characters. I mean, the more flawed, the better.
But it's interesting, this kind of grouping of Catholic convert authors. You know, when you think, okay, Tolkien's not much older than Graham Greene. Maybe a decade or so. You have also Chesterton as well, I think, was a Catholic convert too. I don't know. Green admired Henry James, who was able to work wonders with sentences like those that I guess Mike just read. Green has been out of fashion for at least 2 decades. McEwan admired him, and I think his generation of writers may have been the last one which avidly read his books. Poe has done quite well. And King will too after he has died. So obviously disagrees there maybe with Mr. Donahue. Yeah. Well, I guess one thing we can pull out of this is that some of us want to read some more Graham Greene.
I do.
And I feel like now we have to kind of champion him a little bit to bring him back
Well, I think there's hope if you look, because Steve, when we first announced that we were buddy or group reading Quiet American, Steve was saying, "Why are you picking Green when there's John le Carré out there?" But being Steve, he's now gone and quickly read all the Graham Greens, which he can do and I can't. And he seems to be being converted. He seems to be having a much better time reading Graham Greene this time around than whenever he read him before. So maybe we'll have one proselyzer there for us.
Maybe so.
Yeah, or maybe Steve's just struggling with his own conscience and problems as well, you know. So,
yeah, these flawed characters. Yeah,
these flawed characters, exactly. Well, I think we'll leave it there because I'm sure you've all got things to do. Don't just we'll have a little after chat for a minute or so after the stream ends. But yeah, I want to thank, of course, Greg, Mike, Alan, and Emily for joining me. I want to thank everyone in the chat, particularly Helen, Libra Paradiso, who else? Napolo, Winterlind, who commented on this and gave us their thoughts as well. And it was very interesting. And I will certainly be back next week for another Dr. November live, and we'll see who else is a glutton for punishment and wants to come back on with me. Probably will require a bit more reading, guys.
I said diamonds are forever tonight.
There you go.
Tomorrow morning.
There you go. All right. So thanks again, and have a wonderful rest of your weekend. I will be enjoying a long weekend. We have, and I guess it kind of links in with Dr. November because we have Monday off because it's the struggle for freedom and democracy anniversary of the Velvet Revolution and the end of communism and the fall of communism here in the Czech Republic, or Czechoslovakia as it was then. So yeah, do take care, everybody. See you all soon. Cheerio.